Welcome to What I Meant to Say, where we discuss parenting, relationships, and wisdom that can be passed down through generations. Thank you so much for joining me today, Christian Yordanov, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. I was going to leave one word out there when I asked you your title. So can we dive in and let me know, what does a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner do?
So, as I already mentioned, how we separate ourselves from just your regular nutritionist is their realm is really the food you eat, and that's a part, probably the most important part of health. But the diagnostic part comes in because we've been taught how to run various lab tests where we can basically it's like detective work. We can figure out what aspects of a person's metabolism need extra support, where the blockages that we can unblock and let the person sort of uh steer back on course. And when I say on course, I mean towards optimal metabolic health. This is really where the body wants to be. If we gave it everything, nutrition, sleep, everything, sunlight, and removed all the obstacles, that's where the body will be. And aging will be very, very slow, and degeneration will be very, very slow, and disease will be almost non-existent. In fact, I was just today, I started working with a graphic designer for the cover of my next book. It will be all about longevity. It's going to be called How to Actually Live Longer, because a lot of the longevity books don't give us much tangible, real, practical advice. So it will be possibly a multiple volume series. So yeah, this is what I talk about in the book. If you can figure out what are the insults, the damaging factors happening to your body cells, mitigate, ameliorate, or eliminate those, you will pretty much slow aging and disease as much as humanly possible.
Wow. Yeah, there are so many things, and I know we're worlds apart. Where are you coming from? Where are you coming to me from today?
South of Portugal.
South of Portugal, and I'm in America, and there are so many things that are working against us in America these days to have really functional, healthy metabolic health. So I'm really intrigued. I saw some of the things on your website that people from America have started working with you once they get this feedback and these diagnostic tests that you provide.
Yeah.
Because we really are up against it. There are so many poisons and toxins in our society, from the soil all the way on up. And I'm curious, what got you into this line of work, and how are you able to help people functionally remove the things that are so prevalent in our day-to-day life?
Yeah, it's my story is kind of it's pretty messed up because when I was I guess 15, 16, I kind of fell in with the wrong crowd, let's say. And basically my late teens and throughout my 20s, I just squandered that time for the most part. I dropped out of college, but bartending, pursuing a DJ career, you know, alcohol, smoking, crappy food, just you name it, I did it. I broke a leg. I worked the night shift 2 years, completely destroying my health, you know. And then in my basically, I turned 30. That year I met the woman that was to become my wife, and I had to figure, I had to start getting my act together. At the same time, people around me, my mother, my grandmother, I could see them start to degenerate, and I could see how little help they were actually getting from the medical system, right? In fact, a lot of people were actually being made worse. For example, this is part of the story in the introduction of my book. My wife, in the first year we were together, the doctors put her on antibiotics 4 times in that first year, because she kept getting sick. Her ballet career basically destroyed her health, and after that she got a fungal stuff going on, obviously, as you do after you destroy your microbiome. And then they put her on birth control, and that really put a lot of pressure on our relationship. You know, when the estrogen level rises, a lot of women have this problem. because a lot of women are either in a very pro-estrogenic environment, or they're straight up being given estrogenic drugs, birth control pills and so on. So at that point I was so frustrated, and I had to figure things out for myself. I had to figure out, did I destroy my health forever? Is it genetic? Is it environmental? So I started delving into functional medicine. I started learning about nutrition, genetics, the microbiome, and then I started buying better food, organic, wild caught, all this stuff. Started getting more supplements from the U.S. from cool companies, and doing more biohacks. And then at the same time, I'm seeing people degenerate, not getting help or being made worse, like I said. So I was like, I said to myself, well, I've always wanted to, since I was basically 8, 9, 10 years old. I always wanted to do something good to the world, for the world, in my life. I just knew it since a young age, and that it kind of started making sense. I started doing more courses on all sorts of things, and when I discovered functional diagnostic nutrition, that's when it all made sense, because now for me the lab testing was sort of like the missing link, right? Because now we can, anybody on the street, as long as they can, have the cash to invest in their health and their life, they can access really cutting edge technological advancements, right? So we can figure, for example, one of my favorite tests is just a stool pathogen test, right? And with this test, every single time I've ran this test on a client, we've always discovered something amiss. And usually people come to me when they have some sort of health issue, but they're not always gut related, obviously. But when almost invariably when a person has a health issue, if we ever do decide to do like a gut test or some other gut function test, we always discover some type of imbalance in the gut, right? So
Mm.
these lab tests really unlock a lot of things. One thing they unlock for the kind of the, especially for men that, like myself in my early 30s and all through my 20s, we think we're indestructible, the ego, the stupidity, and so on and so forth, the male bravado. When someone comes to you and they're like, oh, I'm great, everything is dandy, and I say, okay, let's run a couple of tests. We do a couple of tests, organic acid and so on, and then I show the person, the guy, all right, you have antioxidant deficiency. This indicates you're probably under a lot of toxic stress, and you are not creating enough antioxidants. Here's multiple B vitamin and other deficiencies. Here you have yeast candida. Here you have potential fungal exposure. Where do you think you're gonna be in 10, 20 years time if you don't start, taking better care of yourself, better food, better supplements and so on and so forth, better, like, not to derail this thought, but a lot of people are that I'm talking to lately, they've destroyed themselves with low carb, keto, fasting, intermittent fasting. So when you see the test results, a lot of this stuff, I'm super healthy, everything is fine. The sort of ostrich in the sand paradigm, it goes away, and people are like, oh crap, all right, tell me more. How do I optimize myself?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I want to bring it back to a basic question just for people that are maybe joining us at not so far down the nutritional path as you and I have covered. But why is the gut microbiome so important?
Well, it's not just the gut microbiome, but it's the overall health of the digestive system, which doesn't just include the small intestine, the large intestine. It's not just the stomach, right? It's it includes the gallbladder, it includes the liver and the pancreas, right? And those organs have to be functioning well. So even if the tube is working perfectly, there's no damage or inflammation, and the gut microbiota are all in good nick, and no pathogens and yeast. If that's the case, but your liver is dysfunctional, well, a lot of the nutrients go from the gut to the liver, right? Now, if your microbiota, just to go back to the question, because there's many different directions this topic can take us, but the gut microbiota, they interact. We still have barely scratched the surface on how we actually how they interact with our body, our health, and so on. But what we do know is they they create chemicals like neurochemicals, like peptides, neuropeptides, neurotransmitters. They synthesize certain vitamins like vitamin K2, potentially other B vitamins. They can degrade certain toxins w- before we get the chance to you know assimilate them. They can if the good, quote unquote, good bacteria are their, if their populations are high, they will crowd out potential dysbiotic bacteria or potential pathogens, right? So for example, the reason probiotics can be helpful if someone has like a mild dysbiosis, let's say not an overt infection like Giardia or Cryptosporidium, but something has overgrown that's not, shouldn't be overgrowing. When you add a probiotic, it's not that those guys battle it out and then the probiotic ousts the baddies. It's that they compete for nutrients, for space, and so on, and then the other guys are their numbers are kind of knocked down. So our microbiota, we have to really be kind and gentle to our gut, because if we do something silly, like you have a cold or a flu, and then you get tricked into taking an antibiotic for a week or two that should not have been done, well, that's going to cause a disturbance, because it kills good bacteria along with the bad. So if it's a bacterial issue, great, okay. The problem is these antibiotics, they leave behind a lot of other things like yeast, for example. So yeast have more space to proliferate in this scenario. So this is a very common thing in the last few decades, is yeast and fungal and candida overgrowths because of indiscriminate, irresponsible use of antibiotics. So if we do things like that, or if you eat crappy inflammatory foods, or funny enough, if you don't sleep, if you're under a lot of stress, you can really wreck your gut health. It's actually well known for decades that when you're stressed, whether that's physiological, like running a marathon, or psychological, reconciling spreadsheets for end of year accounts, that activates the fight or flight nervous system, which pulls blood towards the limbs so you can fight, flee, etc., etc. That takes blood away from the digestive system, right?
Yeah. Well, I think, you touched on so many things, and there are so many layers to, creating that good metabolic health, that makes us feel the way we want to feel. And as we get older, it's harder and harder. And I think part of, that feeling of when we're in our 20s and leading, up to 30, and we feel like we can run through walls and everything's always going to be fine, but we're also being bombarded by these toxins in our environment. And what are some of the ways that people can start to look out for the things that are so common in daily life, and maybe start to cut down on those before they become a real problem?
Yeah, I mean, God, there's dozens and dozens of things. I like to I like to simplify it. Obviously, food should be number one. Food and water. I always tell people, like, just spend a couple $100, at least get a reverse osmosis system, because here in Portugal, a lot of people, because water is cheap, you go you can't drink the water from the tap. Some people get those Brita filters, which are don't do much. They take some chlorine out and some stuff out, but they don't do much, right?
Mhm.
So other people, they buy this. There's this delicious spring water, but you're buying it. It's not expensive, but you're buying it in big plastic jugs, and it's warm in the summer, and God knows how long it's been. And by the way, those bottles are PET, which is polyethylene terephthalate. So there was the whole hoopla about getting phthalates out of the plastics, and why plastics are so bad because of phthalates and so on. Um, but we're still drinking. Everybody's still drinking water out of plastic bottles that have phthalates in them, right? So getting a reverse osmosis system, couple $100, and then your filters are like $50 a year, super cheap, really good. And then for another $50, I always tell people, just get a shower filter. God, man, like, we absorb chlorine from the shower water so readily, and then we
Mm.
also inhale it because it's volatile. So there's $250. Instead of buying, I don't even know what people buy nowadays, like a new TV or something. I don't even know how much a new TV costs,
Yeah.
but but instead of buying a new TV, just get that, and get for 100, maybe $150, get some HEPA air filters for the kids' rooms, for your own bedroom, for your main living space, your office. So these are kind of the basics. And then of course, I really do not think organic food should be a negotiable thing anymore. I know it's expensive, but I'll tell you, it doesn't have to be that expensive, right? But it has to be a priority for people. I really believe this has to be a number one priority, because the thing is, if you know as much as I do, you would immediately do all these things that I do, right? But when people kind of ask me a question, let's say friends or family are visiting, and I tell them, for example, I told my in-laws, they have two kids, and I told them, don't buy don't buy conventional strawberries. It's like literally one of the most toxic things you can buy. But we're at the table. It's a passing remark. This will never land in their brains enough that they will actually make that decision. And then not that they're trying to buy organic foods, but they don't go out of their way. For example, for me, it's like now, if I can't get berries organic, which is because they're seasonal, organic, they have to be seasonal. We only buy berries, May to September, October. The rest of the year, we were kind of forced to eat more seasonally. And the reason I don't buy regular strawberries or blueberries is because they're very thin skinned. So think about any fruit that has a thin skin, how delicious and easily accessible that is to bugs. And what does that mean? Well, the farmers, they don't want that to happen, so they're gonna spray the bejesus out of it with fungicides, pesticides, all sorts of stuff, right? And then never mind the fact all the artificial fertilizers and so on, right? So this is kind of my rationale for the organic produce. Anything with a thicker skin that's under the ground, like a tuber, onions with a thick skin, watermelon, not the end of the world. But all the summer fruits, most of them, watermelon is technically a berry, but that's just a fun fact. Um, all the summer fruits like peaches, nectarines, apples, pears, just either this is where I make the distinction. If I can't find them organic, let's say we're traveling, I just buy something else that I can't find organic, right? And then when it comes to meat, that's another area where I just buy the cheapest organic. It's organic ground beef, and it's the cheapest really thing I can find. But funnily enough, it's actually the healthiest in many ways, because it's cheaper. They add a lot of the kind of the gristle, so there's a lot of collagenous tissue in there, which it's not valued nowadays by society, but it's actually really really good for your joints, for your skin, for just your detoxification system, because it has amino acids that are used in detoxification. So I buy this ground beef, and then it's super versatile. You can make a bazillion different styles and dishes with it, from Italian bolognese to Indian curries, and it's like a base, right? So it when people hear organic food, they think of expensive organic things, and a lot of organic things are expensive, but the staples and the basics aren't. Organic white rice is 50 cents in my neck of the woods, is 50 cents more per kilogram than regular. So there's slight little changes, but once you understand what you're doing, so when you buy organic, first of all, you're supporting businesses that are actually trying to improve the biome that we live in, right? But then you're reducing pesticides, herbicides, and then obviously, when I say organic food, I don't mean organic tortilla chips and crap. I'm talking about real whole foods, right? um, so if you do that, you're also reducing other chemicals, emulsifiers. Like there's literally 2,000 plus different chemicals you would be avoiding, and that has an effect on your gut. It has an effect on your detoxification system in a positive way, that is. And over time, that ages you slower, you degenerate slower. And then this is when we talk about an investment, when we talk about insurance. So people invest cash for the future, they buy insurance for their health, but where we should actually be investing the cash is in the food, organic, high quality food, and we should be investing in our health. And that is how it should be, instead of paying a company like 3,000 miles away to take care of you if something horrible happens, like you develop cancer or something. That's really backwards.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on all of that, and I think so often we lose sight of what we are spending money on, and it's really easy to say when the motivation isn't there or you don't understand it, to say it's too expensive and then turn around and we'll be, Americans, we're at the drive-through, we're taking, eating out is more expensive than eating at home,
Yeah,
even if you're buying organic. So, and I see lots of companies popping up that are more aligned with these values, because we are more and more Americans are realizing how bad they feel.
yeah.
And, I think those are probably, hopefully, a lot of the people that are finding you. And I'm wondering what the trend is that you see in the people coming to you. What are they complaining of, or why do they find you?
I mean, there's so many different things. For example, because my first book was about autism and children's health, I have some clients that some are with autistic kids, but some just have neurotypical kids, but that still have struggle with some health issues. Allergies, constipation is a big one. Gut health is a big one with the kids. In fact, it's actually quite ironic, but I have, just as an example, I have one client where, man, like, she does everything so well. They buy the best food. She's all about the being in the sunshine, all that good stuff. And her kid was really struggling for months with the constipation, until she started working with me, and we resolved it. So it's kind of ironic that, and she was pretty at one time, she was pretty sort of frustrated that her friends kids eat all sorts of crap, and she's like, they're like minding every bite of food that goes into her mouth, and their kids don't have any problems. So it's that kind of thing. But and then I have adults. So I have actually, the majority of my clients are women. I really enjoy working with women. No offense to the guys, but just women in as a whole tend to care more about their health. They're a little bit more, or I should say, a little bit less combative about making changes in the implementing new things, and just a little bit more freaking open-minded to the whole health stuff. So I have ladies postmenopausal. I have some ladies that are kind of in their early 30s with hypothyroidism. um uh, have some weight loss clients, and I have a smaller proportion of folks that are just, they're pretty healthy. They just
Mm-hmm.
want to optimize stuff, which is I really enjoy. I'm hoping this becomes more of a trend in the future, where people are proactively investing in their health rather than seeking out help when they have a health issue, because that's literally what we've been conditioned as a society to do, because of the influence of companies that sell chemicals that mask symptoms for profit. Like, they have literally created this paradigm of, you wait until something goes wrong, you go to the doctor or whatever, they give you pills, and then those pills stop the pain or whatever, the bleeding or whatever the heck it is.
Absolutely. And that's,
Yeah.
that sick care system is solidly in place,
Oh,
versus
yeah.
the well care that you are advocating and spending your life, with people, trying to help them get there. And it's something that I've seen time and again in my own family. I've helped, detox my little boy who's now 16. And I remember turning around in the kitchen at one point, and he's just standing there holding a stalk of broccoli and just munching on it like it was a popsicle. And the sad thing is that, it's really hard to keep them there. It's easy when they're little, but as they grow up and they are, they get their driver's license and they're out driving around, and there's pizza and there's McDonald's and there's all the things that, are just tearing our guts apart. There's just so much, there's so much influence, and people really, you have to learn on your own what it feels like to feel good.
Yeah.
And, it's a road, and it takes a lot of, independent discipline. But without the knowledge, that we're nowhere. So, I appreciate the things that you're putting out, and I wonder, how do you help people connect to that sense of discipline that they have to really make a change?
Well, honestly, it's not that hard. Obviously, working with with me in a coaching capacity, because we have there's a bit more accountability. So I use this very cool client management app, so people, if they want to, they can track their diet. We have the protocols, we can do check-ins periodically, and that I publish supplement protocols and so on, detox protocols. And I think people start once this is why I really love supplements. I know some people are anti supplements, but high quality supplements, I've been researching them for years and years. I spent hundreds, probably thousands of hours at this point researching them, and they can really get a person out of a rut. Some people right now, they've dug themselves into a hole so deep, health wise, metabolically speaking, that they cannot just um, dig them. It's like when you're the example I sometimes use is, if you're in credit card debt, every month you're in even more debt because of the interest that accrues. So yeah, you need a cash injection. You need to get into the positive, and then maybe with that little bit of cash, you buy some stuff and you sell it on eBay, or you do a massage course, you become a masseuse, or start buy a pottery making spinny thingy. And then, so you need an investment from outside to get you back on your feet. So the supplements and some of the detoxes I do, they really help people mobilize more energy. So just as an example, if you have someone that's very overweight, like an obese person, it's it's not necessarily that they were eating thousands of calories plus every single day on top, that cause that weight gain. For a lot of people, it could be thyroid problems, it could be some type of metabolic dysfunction where energy is not being created with that fuel coming in. So if we can unblock those mitochondrial metabolic energy creation pathways, whatever you want to call them, a lot of people, they have more energy. When you have more energy, you um you want to do more things. So I had one client, she was like, first of all, she was like, man, I have so much energy now. I'm like the Energizer Bunny. I can go, 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 go. And and then I remember another. We had another call, and later, maybe a month or two later, she's like, "It's very weird, but I'm not hungry anymore. Since I was a kid, my mother would tell me, you're never satisfied. You're always hungry, like a black hole." And that really illustrates well when you, and this was a weight loss client, just to kind of add context. When the food comes in, and if it's, first of all, if it's nutritious food, your body will register it's nutritious food. If it's just tortilla chips, you're getting a lot of calories, but the reason your appetite is not satiated is because it's engineered that way, but also because your body senses there's no zinc, there's no B vitamins, no selenium, no calcium. The body wants those things, so it seeks out more food, more nutrition, not just calories, right? Energy and nutrients. So when we unblock the cellular pathways to create energy out of that fuel, the person obviously has more energy, and they feel more satisfied with the food that they're eating naturally. And by the way, this was a person that was eating very well. So I have clients, weight loss clients, that are actually eating very well. And I have this test that you cannot cheat on. It's a little blood spot test that we check for fatty acids. You cannot cheat on this test because it shows how many omega-3s, omega-6s, saturated, monounsaturated fats you have, percentages. And the reason you cannot cheat on this test is, if you stop eating crappy fats for like the last week or two, all the ones that are stored on your body are going to be, there's a metabolism to them, so it will show. And you really have to be eating pristinely for months and months and months, sometimes for years, for the test to show like a good result. So you cannot really cheat on it. And I have weight loss clients where their fatty acid profile is mostly saturated, mostly monounsaturated, little omega-6 reasonable omega 3s. So I'm like, clearly, and I'm telling that person, clearly the issue for you is not food quality, it's not eating too much, because some of them also track the diet. It's either a hormonal imbalance, which is very often the case, thyroid, estrogen, and so on and so forth, stress, cortisol, or it's some type of metabolic dysfunction, which can often be actual mitochondrial dysfunction, B vitamin deficiencies, and so on. So I actually forgot your question at this point.
No, that was I no, that was a great breakdown, because I do think that people don't realize that, as many times as I've heard it comes down to calories in, calories out. It really, when it comes to a weight loss journey, particularly for women, I know that so many women I talk to that it doesn't feel that way. And so
Yeah.
those things that you're addressing, people don't realize all the things that are playing into their weight loss journey and really what true health is. And something that's been really near and dear to my heart as I've tried to feel better over the years is realizing how key sleep is. One of the first nutritionists I ever talked to, she talked to me first about sleep, and I'm
Mhm.
wondering, do you work with your clients on their on sleep and how that affects their metabolism?
So sleep for me, I don't want to sound cocky, but I feel like I solved that problem because after our daughter was born, my wife had a horrendous
Mm.
period of insomnia. During that time, we tried like almost everything under the sun. She was so bad that sleeping pills couldn't knock her out. One of our neighbors gave us sleeping pills. Should get them from the pharmacy for us. Even that wouldn't work. So we tried from CBD, all the breathing exercises, meditations, um, all the I have tons of herbs. Like I've hundreds of different things I've tried over the years. Um, so I'll tell you, just as an example, I had one client. Her daughter had pretty severe sleep issues. She couldn't
Mhm.
um, she couldn't fall asleep and she couldn't stay asleep, right? So I gave her an elaborate protocol of multiple things to do. And the first thing was I told her daughter was quite young, it was like
I was gonna ask you, how old was the little girl?
about 10 years of age, right?
Okay,
So we can't do a lot. There's a lot less leeway there. We have to be very can't give a person like that a bunch of supplements or whatever, right?
sure.
So um so the first thing on the protocol was actually there was environmental stuff. So the first thing I told her, well, an hour before bedtime, turn down the lights. If you can get red LED light bulbs, they're super cheap. They last, tens of thousands of hours from Amazon. What I do, we've been doing that for almost 6 years, is when my daughter's bedtime will be in an hour and a half from now. So when I go downstairs in whatever time, my wife will have turned off the regular lights and switched on the red light. So we have one in her room, one in the corridor, one in the living room, and one in the bathroom. So any rooms that we need to use while before she goes to bed, um, you know, there's none of this LED blue light disturbing the melatonin production and so on. So funny story, but I have them here. When my wife was pregnant, before my daughter was even born, I bought her own super cute biohacker um, blue blocking glasses. They're still in the packet because her face is too small to still use them. But I got her these. So one day so this is what I told my clients, get her blue blocking glasses. And I always ask, what is the person doing before bed to figure out where could be the problem, the blockages. So I told her, from now on, tell her no more reading or doing stuff or whatever on the bed. The bed is only for sleeping, right? So get set her up a little couch on the floor, whatever. That's where she'll do her reading before bed, and then go to bed. Never associate bed with anything other than sleep, and with adults, sleep and sex. Just that kind of distinction there. um and then this is what did it, though, because they didn't even have time to for the stuff to arrive that they ordered, the red light bulbs and the blue blockers. 2 tablespoons of honey before before bed. Doesn't even matter when. 30 minutes to right before bed, right before you brush your teeth. And this works for so many people like adults that have tried it. With adults maybe a bit more, maybe 3 tablespoons, sometimes 4 tablespoons of honey. And it's not that honey is special in any way, but it's the fact that it's carbohydrate, right? When you take the honey, so just a bit of context. A lot of people, we've been brainwashed that carbs are bad, carbs are fattening. So, and I used to be like this. I would skip carbs at dinner so I could burn fat at night because I thought I didn't need energy. Never mind the fact that your liver, your kidneys, your brain, and your heart consume 60% of your daily energy expenditure. So when you go to bed, you don't shut down. Your brain needs like 5, 6, 7 grams of glucose per hour, and multiply that over 8 hours. That's like, you know, could be 50, 60
Yeah.
grams of glucose. And then your heart needs energy, your liver, and so on. So where a lot of people are having problems falling asleep, or waking up and staying asleep, or waking up early, is because they are running out of liver glycogen. This is what keeps your blood sugar
Mm.
stable throughout the night. When you run out of liver, or not when you run out, but when your liver glycogen levels start to drop, stress hormones like cortisol start going up. And cortisol is obviously a stress hormone. Adrenaline is a stress hormone. These things amp you up. They wake you up. They're the opposite. They're part of the fight or flight nervous system, which is antagonistic to the rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system. So when you take a bunch of, let's say 30, 40, 50, depends on how much carbs you eat, how well fed you are, how big your dinner was, how many hours ago it was. When you take 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 grams of glucose, or whatever, glucose, fructose, before bed, you're topping up your liver glycogen. And that will allow you to maintain this blood sugar for longer before the stress hormones have to start kicking in. So that's a really good one. And then,
Yeah.
in terms of, sorry
Yeah.
to add, this is also another really good one that works well, is the amino. It's a supplement. The amino
Mhm.
acid GABA, GABA, which is gamma amino butyric acid. It's actually a neurotransmitter, and it's the major inhibitory neurotransmitter. So inhibitory, think rest and digest.
Mhm.
Excitatory, think like fight or flight. And that really helps to just calm the nervous system down. So 30 minutes before bed, that's another good addition. And then with dinner, I also like about 300 milligrams of glycine. Oh, sorry, magnesium glycinate. It's one of the best absorbed forms. So that's inhibitory, that's calming. Then the GABA, that's calming, and then you're topping up your liver glycogen. So as soon as you take that honey, because the insulin, it doesn't rise a lot, but it rises. When insulin rises, cortisol goes down. They're kind of oppose
Right.
each other. So that's what you want for bed. You want adrenaline to be low. You want all the other stress hormones, noradrenaline, cortisol, growth hormone, all those things. You want them to be as low as possible. And the biggest stressor to the body really is a drop in blood sugar, aka starvation, aka coma or death, right? So we will fight tooth and nail to maintain that blood sugar. The body will literally destroy your bones, muscles, organs, joints, to give the liver substrate to make glucose. So let's give it the glucose so the stress hormones don't have to do that.
Wow, I've never heard that before. Honestly, like I have tried not to eat before bed, and I'm very familiar with the 2 a.m. cortisol dump.
Yeah,
And the first time I read about that, I was like, okay, that's what that is. I used to call them the 2 a.m. demons, right?
yeah.
And it still happens, but that's a really interesting. I've never heard that before.
Oh my
I
god.
don't think readily out
You
there. At
know,
least.
the it's not that's why it's like my autism book. I wouldn't have written it if there was like 20 other autism books covering these things out there, and people are being helped and doing the right things.
I'm curious as to how you implement some of these things. you said you have a 2-year old, and I
Yeah.
have a lot of parents listening. It's not always easy to just to start off on this track, but are you doing things with your own kids based on the knowledge that you have?
Yeah, I mean, like luckily for us, myself and my wife, we started doing this stuff. We weren't married back then, around 2018. So with a lot of the stuff we live, we it's not like we had to change a lot of habits with a kid, because
Yeah.
it's hard. It's hard. I can see why it would be difficult for people. So luckily, we were already eating organic and wild caught, and we were all about keeping as many toxins out of our house as possible. So yeah, my daughter, like she sees me taking supplements when we eat, and she has her little vitamin D and her little vitamin K, and I used to give her probiotics. And we went to this really cool homeopath guy up in the mountains here, and he gave her these little digestive enzymes. And the more I learned, so now I, instead of giving her the the fat soluble vitamins in the mouth, I actually I rub them on her belly, right? So the belly button, the absorption at the belly button for like vitamin D, K, E, is almost they say as intravenous freaking injection, like, because
Wow.
the belly button is how we used to eat. Now obviously it's closed, but that fat soluble, a lot of fat soluble, actually a lot of things absorb through the skin. That's why we really, at least I personally, don't use many products. My wife, she has to have her skincare bits and pieces. That's an area I've just shut up about, because I don't want World War VIII here in the house. But so she sees, and then I don't give her the stuff all the time, especially because fat soluble vitamins once a week, it can be enough for kids. But she will see me take something, and she's like, "And me?" It's this kind of thing, you know. So, and then sometimes, like, I'm getting her ready for bed, and she's like pointing to her belly button. It's like, "Ah," whatever. And then I will have this it's like an antibacterial type of herbal tincture called biocidin, and like she's like, biocidin. Sometimes she sees it on the kitchen table, like, biocidin. So, like, I believe if we just, they're gonna model us, right? Whatever
Right.
we do. So I think I totally agree with you that what's out there, the pizza, the takeout, and the McDonald's, I'd worry about it so much, right? But I think at least if we can build this foundation here, and she sees and sees what it's like to be healthy, and how she feels after good food, which is, she probably doesn't know how she feels after good food now, but when she has crappy food, when she feels lethargic or whatever, or has gut problems the next day after it, then it will be an opportunity for her to see, okay, well, then now I see why mama and papa made me eat, this stuff and not this stuff. So I kind of, I'm a little, not that I'm orthorexic about it. I hate the fact that um she will get more spoiled and spoiled every year because she's visiting more family and so on. um like my wife will be taking her to her home country for a month in the summer, and I know during that time there'll be very little organic food and so on and so forth. But the other benefits of interacting with all her little cousins and so on are are
Yeah.
intangible. So I kind of, it's just when you think about it, like when I was, sorry to kind of, veering off on many directions, but when I was a kid, Wendy, from maybe the age of, I don't know, 10, 12, until about 18, I would drink up to 2 liters of Coca-Cola a day. you know I
Yeah.
was pumping the Coca-Cola. So, and I kind of sort of turned out all right. So I'm sure our kids will turn out all right if we do the right things at home. But yeah, I really, because I have a lot of books on physiology, natural medicine, and stuff like that, I do want to, we sometimes we look at anatomy books, and I'll tell her, this is the brain, it's in your skull. And the other day my wife came in, because my wife, she's a ballet teacher, she's an ex-professional ballerina, but now she became a Pilates teacher. So when my wife came into the room, I touched my daughter's shoulder blade, and like,
Mhm.
tell mama what this bone is. And she said scapula. Well, not that well, but I'm gonna be teaching her from an early age about health, about how things be, how the food becomes us, and so on and so forth. So I really feel if we take that opportunity early on, then maybe the kids, when they see like a milkshake one day, it will look amazing. But when all this kind of, I don't want to say brainwashing, whatever, but all
Mhm.
this stuff that daddy has, put into your brain, maybe it will kind of help you make better choices.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that's the key to parenting is really it's not what we say, it's what we do. And having
Yeah.
that modeling system around them is so important. So what's the name of the book that you said is out in a couple of weeks so we can point people towards it?
So the book is going to be called "How to Actually Live Longer," Volume One. Because
Amazing.
I swear, Wendy, about a month ago, around no, it was around Christmas. I sent the book off to the editor for the first round of editing, and um, I was like in the office. I'm like, oh crap! Now I have a few days off. I just can't, you know, I have to do something. So I bought a few longevity books, the biggest ones, and some of these things are like 400-500 pages, and I'm just reading, like scanning through, browsing through, and it's story after story after bullshit story, and I'm like, where are the actual tips, guys? Like, how do we? So I'm thinking to myself, that's when I changed the title of the book. Before that was going to be something about health, mental performance, so on, optimization, blah blah. But I'm thinking to myself, these guys are like MDs, PhDs. They're the cream of the crop. 500,000 followers on YouTube, on their YouTube channels. Like, why? Okay, why are you telling us about the fact that you like to race, like to drive race cars in your spare time? This other guy, why are you dropping names of this Nobel Prize guy that and like your buddy this and this business you helped start? Why are you, you know, s- um, ego stroking for 400, 500 pages and not giving us actual information? Now I know a lot of that is because they're publishers. That's what they want. That's how nonfiction is written. It has to be, you start every chapter with a story, but then it's like, all right, you've told me one story, and now you're about to start about a vitamin or mechanism or modality, and that turns into another three, four, five stories, and I'm like, okay, well, I could have summarized your whole chapter in like 2 paragraphs, guys. So I'm like, come on. And then another, this big longevity doctor, I heard him on a podcast last week, and it was a recent podcast, and he told the guy hosting him, he told him why he stopped fasting. And this guy, for years and years, was fasting like multiple times a year for up to a week at a time, running blood work, doing all these things. And all of his well, not all of his followers, because fasting is like, it's horrible. So not everyone can be that sadistic to themselves. But still, he influenced potentially hundreds of thousands of people, if not more. And now he stopped fasting because a DEXA scan or whatever MRI showed that he lost a bunch of lean mass, and he gained multiple percentage points in body fat. And he's like, oh, well, I don't want to be that phenotype, so I stopped. So, like, what about all of these potentially millions of people who you influence that are still they're not going to hear this podcast, or they don't follow you on your other podcast, or they didn't read your book? These guys are going to continue to destroy their health and make themselves weaker with these modalities. So I had to like, and obviously this book will never do as well as the big names books, but if I can change the lives of a few hundred, a few thousand people, that's hopefully some good karma points for the next life.
Yeah, amen. I'm with you on that. And it leads me to the question of, because what you're saying is so, again, contrary to so many of the things that I've read and have seen out there these days. Um, I'm wondering, what does it look like if someone were to seek you out today? What does that process look like when they come get help from you?
So yeah, so the first thing folks do is they schedule a free 15-minute call. They download the app so we can conduct it, HIPAA safe, privacy, blah blah blah. And then we have a chat, see if we're a good fit to work together, and then if if we are, they'll pick a time span to work with me. I like to work with people for 3, 6, or 12 months at a time. I don't really do single consultations. It's a lot of we do a lot of work like to figure out about the person's situation, and then all that is really wasted at the end of it. So I prefer people to invest in a package, so then we can have written protocols and monitor things. And because health um takes time to augment or to change, especially if you've been going down the wrong direction for decades. You can't really it's like, wait, just to go back to the weight gain example, if you took 2 decades to become obese and diabetic, well, we can't expect it to be reversed in 6 months. Sometimes it
Right.
can, but actually losing weight that quickly is actually detrimental. People that have done that have been associated with a higher mortality. This is actually a very striking finding in the literature. Is a lot of a lot of weight gain, a lot of weight loss, and weight fluctuations through one's life increase chances of mortality. And funnily enough, the people with the best mortality outcomes are the ones that gain a moderate amount of weight as their age. So that's kind of, I know a lot of people would balk at that, but that's actually what at least the epidemiological data shows. Um, so yeah, that's how it works. And then at that point, we can, depending on the person's time, goals, interests, we can do a bunch of different lab work. Usually for most people, a couple of tests, maybe with some blood work from their doctor. We can track diet if they want. I recommend some supplement protocols. I give them access to my detox workshop where they can um, do some detox support. There's this liver flush module in there where you kind of flush the stones out of your liver. It's really fun. Well, it's not fun, but it's fun seeing the stones coming out of you multiple months in a row. So yeah, that's kind of the basic gist of it.
Wow. Well, that is fascinating. And I know there are a lot of Americans over here that we're hurting, we're inflamed, we're taking in these toxins every day, whether it's through our clothes, through our diet, I think about it when I'm on my yoga
Everything.
mat, everything.
That
So,
I had to get
yeah,
a rubber freaking yoga mat. It's uncomfortable as heck, but if you put it on top of the soft foam one, it's not as nice. But at least you're like on a natural material as opposed to, yeah, I just feel dirty on these things. And even in the car, especially like one of my neighbors got a new car the other day, and she's like, look, have a look inside. And like I opened the door, I'm like, ah, God. And my kid was coming up to me like, no, 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 stay back, new car smell, new car smell. So
yeah, no,
yeah, it's crazy. So in the book, I wanted to simplify things for people. And the first chapter, it's a very sort of overview of, and I called it, here's what's killing you, or understand what's killing you. So in order to really simplify things, I came up with this, because everybody has a model or this or that. So I came up with the three primary drivers of aging and dysfunction, and they are stress, psychological and physiological. And then to expand from stress, because everything is a stress that's bad for you, really. But the two archetypal stressors in the body are inflammation and oxidative stress, right? So they're the physiological stressors that age your cells by causing them to be dysfunctional, killing them too early, or depleting nutrients, depleting antioxidants, and so on.
wow. And okay, the third one, I
So,
think I
so
missed
stress
stress.
is at the top of the
Hmm.
triangle of the Bermuda Triangle of death. And then
Okay,
you have oxidative stress, or I wanted to call it stress, inflammation, oxidation, but oxidation is kind of not exactly the right term. So stress, inflammation, oxidative stress. And then
got it.
i- yeah, so inflammation causes tissue damage. Oxidative stress causes cellular damage, depletes antioxidants, and those two actually drive more stress in the body up. So it goes up and it goes down, it goes left and it goes right.
That makes sense. And man,
Yeah,
can you feel that in the aging process? That is a
yeah.
definite, yeah, I've locked in on that and I'm constantly looking for things to bring those things down. So
But
makes a lot of sense.
you know the polyunsaturated fats, when you eat them, whether they're from seed oils or from nuts or whatever, or grains, when you eat them, they become part of you. They become part of your cell membranes and so on, your mitochondria. So they are more prone to oxidative stress. So reducing those and replacing them with more saturated and monounsaturated fats will, over time, it takes years, replace all the weak or unstable polyunsaturated fatty acids. So you will have less points on your mitochondria, on your cell membranes, quote unquote, for oxidants to latch on and cause damage. So that's one thing. And then most people don't know, but the omega-6 fatty acid, linoleic acid,
Mhm.
which is the most abundant in the seed oils and the nuts fatty acid, that is a precursor to various molecules in the body, eicosanoids, they're called, prostaglandins, thromboxanes, so on and so on. They are inflammatory mediators, so they can cause pain, inflammation, and then obviously all the different horrible things that can happen after that. They can affect blood pressure and so on. So the less polyunsaturated omega-6s you eat, the less inflammatory potential is in your body, because you have less of these things floating around or in your body, in your cells, tissues, organs, and so on. So I think that's the biggest one. To you reduce that, you reduce inflammation, and then you reduce oxidative stress potential. So there's a free tip for everybody.
Yeah, that's amazing. And the only thing I would ask you to just clarify, like if people wanted to replace those polyunsaturated fats with the monos, what are some of the foods that you would recommend, switching out?
I wouldn't even recommend going to monos. I'd go straight to saturated, because butter is actually almost 50-50 saturated and mono. It's a little bit more saturated. So I use butter, beef tallow if you can find it, coconut oil, which is mostly saturated fat. Um, and it's really those ones that are the best.
Yeah.
Then olive oil I would use sparingly, and then the other stuff, anything else, almost anything else, belongs in the trash. That's how I feel.
There are just so many things coming at us. And so I applaud you for the work you're doing. And
Thank
I
you.
want people to be able to know the best place to find you so they can seek out your services. So where can
Oh,
they find you?
thank you, Wendy. Appreciate it. This
Mhm.
was really fun. Yeah, just my name, christianyordanov.com. That's my website. The links to everything will be there: podcasts, free consults, and courses and books and so on.
Very, very good. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been awesome. And I know there are many other rabbit holes we can go down. So
Yeah.
I encourage people to seek you out, and because there's no end to, better health and wellness. So thanks for
Thank you
doing
so
what you
much.
do. And thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Wendy. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on What I Meant to Say, another production of Inspired Edutainment, brought to you by Be Better Media.